The first time I saw Alex pick up a guitar, something inside me shifted. It wasn't just the way his fingers danced across the fretboard or how his eyes closed when he hit those perfect notes. It was something more, something I couldn't quite name yet. Our band, Midnight Reverie, had been together for almost 2 years by then. We weren't famous, not even close, but in our small town of Oak Ridge, we had built a decent following at local venues. There were 4 of us. Jamie on drums with her perpetual bedhead and contagious laugh. Marcus handling bass with stoic precision that contrasted his wild fashion choices. Me on keyboard and occasional vocals. And then there was Alex, lead guitar, and the voice that could make time stand still. That particular Tuesday evening started like any other rehearsal. I arrived early at our usual spot, Marcus's garage that we'd transformed into a makeshift studio with egg cartons lining the walls and mismatched rugs covering the concrete floor. The space smelled like a curious mixture of guitar polish, the incense Jamie insisted on burning to cleanse the creative energy, and the lingering scent of pizza from our last session. I love that smell. It felt like home in a way my actual apartment never quite managed. I was setting up my keyboard when Alex walked in, guitar case slung over his shoulder, his dark curls slightly damp from the light rain outside. He wore that faded blue denim jacket I'd seen 100 times before, the one with patches from bands that influenced his sound. "Hey," he said with that half-smile that always made my heart skip a measure. "You're early again." It wasn't a question, but an observation, one that recognized my habit of arriving first without calling attention to why. And the why was simple, though I'd never admitted it. These quiet moments before everyone arrived were precious to me. Sometimes Alex would show up early too, and we'd talk about music, life, or nothing at all while setting up. Let me explain why these moments mattered so much. When you're harboring feelings for someone you see almost every day, someone who stands just a few feet away during performances, someone whose laughter you've memorized like your favorite song, you collect these small interactions like rare vinyl records. You play them back when you're alone, analyzing every note and inflection. And I had quite a collection of Alex moments stored away. Jamie texted, "She's running late," I said, untangling some cables. Something about her car making a noise that sounds like, and I quote, "a robot dying a slow death." Alex laughed, setting his case down and unzipping it with practiced ease. "That's specific. Marcus, on his way, should be here in 10. And then it was just us in that familiar, comfortable silence that felt both peaceful and charged with unspoken words. I watched from the corner of my eye as Alex took out his guitar, a vintage Fender Stratocaster in sunburst that had belonged to his father. The guitar was older than both of us combined, but maintained with such care, it looked almost new except for the worn spots where Alex's fingers had played thousands of notes. "We should try that new bridge for Midnight Whispers tonight," Alex suggested, plugging into his amp. "I was playing around with it yesterday and found something that might work better with your keyboard part." This was typical Alex, always thinking about how our individual parts could mesh more seamlessly. That's what made him such a good bandmate. He didn't just play his part. He listened to everyone else's and found ways to elevate the whole sound. It's also what made him such a good friend, attentive, considerate, present. As he started to tune his guitar, I noticed how the overhead light caught in his hair, creating highlights I hadn't seen before. Maybe they'd always been there, and I just hadn't been paying close enough attention. Or maybe I'd been paying too much attention all along. "Earth to keyboard player," Alex said, snapping me back to reality. "Where'd you go just now?" I felt heat rise to my cheeks. "Sorry, just thinking about that new song idea." He nodded, seemingly satisfied with my explanation, and continued tuning. "I've been thinking about that too. The chorus needs something, but I can't quite figure out what." Before I could respond, Marcus arrived in a whirlwind of energy, his latest hair color, a vibrant purple, making him impossible to miss. "Sorry I'm late. Traffic was a nightmare. Some idiot tried to fit a sofa into a compact car right in the middle of Main Street." And just like that, our moment dissolved into the regular rhythm of band rehearsal. Jamie arrived 15 minutes later, drumsticks already in hand, as if afraid we might have started without her. We fell into our usual pattern, warming up individually before coming together to work on our set list for Friday's gig at the Rusty Nail, the local bar that had become our second home. We were halfway through our third song when it happened. Alex was deep into a solo, eyes closed. body swaying slightly with each note, when there was a sudden twang followed by a curse. His high E string had snapped, the loose end now curling away from the headstock like a question mark. Well, that's a dramatic way to end a solo, Jamie quipped from behind her drum kit. Alex laughed, though I could see the frustration in his eyes. I knew I should have changed these strings last week. I've got spares in my case, but he examined the bridge of his guitar. Looks like there might be an issue with the tuning peg too. Need help? I offered, perhaps too quickly. Marcus and Jamie exchanged a look I pretended not to notice. They knew. Of course they knew. I wasn't exactly subtle with my feelings, at least not to anyone except Alex himself. Actually, yeah, Alex said, seemingly oblivious to the silent communication happening across the room. Could you grab my case while I check this out? As I retrieved his guitar case, Jamie announced she needed a smoke break, and Marcus suddenly remembered an urgent phone call he had to make. Subtle, they were not. Within minutes, Alex and I were alone in the garage, the abrupt silence almost tangible after the wall of sound we'd been creating. I handed Alex the case, our fingers brushing briefly in the exchange. These small touches had become both torture and treasure, each one simultaneously insignificant and monumental. He rummaged through the side pocket and pulled out a pack of strings. Thanks, he said, starting to remove the broken string. You know, my dad always said a broken string during practice means a perfect show later. Is that actually a thing, or just something he made up to make you feel better? I asked, settling on a stool beside him. Alex's relationship with his father was complicated. A former musician himself, Mr. Chun had both encouraged Alex's talent and placed enormous pressure on him. When he passed away 3 years ago, Alex inherited the Stratocaster and a complex mixture of grief, relief, and responsibility. Probably made it up, Alex admitted with a small smile. But I like to believe it anyway. He struggled with the tuning peg, confirming his earlier suspicion that something was wrong with it. Damn, this is stuck. Could you hold the neck steady while I try to loosen this? I moved closer, taking the neck of the guitar in my hands. The wood was warm from Alex's playing, the fretboard smooth from years of fingers sliding across it. We were suddenly in each other's space, close enough that I could smell his distinctive scent, a mix of laundry detergent, coffee, and something uniquely him. You know, Alex said as he worked on the peg, I've been thinking about what you said last week, about music being a language of its own. I was surprised he remembered that conversation. It had been late after a gig, just the two of us packing up while Marcus gave Jamie a ride home. We'd gotten into one of those deep discussions that only seemed to happen after midnight. Yeah, I prompted, trying to keep my voice steady despite our proximity. I think you're right, he continued, finally loosening the peg. There are things I can say with these 6 strings that I'd never find the words for otherwise. He glanced up, and our eyes met. Like, I could play you how today feels, but I couldn't tell you. How does today feel? I asked, curiosity overriding my usual caution. Instead of answering, Alex took the guitar from my hands, quickly threaded the new string, and began to tune it. Once satisfied with the tension, he played a series of notes, not a song I recognized, but something improvised. It started tentative, questioning, then built to something more confident before resolving into a gentle, hopeful progression. When he finished, the final note hung in the air between us. That's today, he said simply. There's something incredibly intimate about someone sharing their art with you, especially when that art is created specifically to express feelings they can't verbalize. It's like being handed a key to a room few people get to enter. In that moment, I felt both privileged and terrified. It's beautiful, I said, because it was, and because I didn't know what else to say. Alex set the guitar aside, a strange determination crossing his features. Can I ask you something? My heart rate doubled instantly. Sure. The other day, when we were working on Shadow's Edge, you changed the bridge from major to minor. It completely transformed the feeling of the song. Why did you do that? This wasn't the question I'd been expecting, but it wasn't a simple one either. The truth was, I'd changed it because the song reminded me of him, of us, and the original key felt too resolved, too certain. The minor variation captured the unresolved tension I felt whenever we were together. I guess I thought it better reflected the lyrics, I said carefully. The song's about uncertainty, about standing at the edge of something and not knowing whether to step forward or back. Major keys sound like decisions already made. Alex nodded slowly, considering this. That makes sense. It's like being out of tune with yourself, knowing where you want to be, but not quite getting there. He picked up the guitar again, absently playing the chord progression we were discussing. Do you ever feel that way? Out of tune with yourself? The question felt weighted, significant in ways I couldn't fully grasp. Sometimes, I admitted. More often than I'd like. Me too, he said quietly. Then, with a sudden shift in energy, here, try something with me. He adjusted his position and patted the space next to him on the old couch we kept in the corner of the garage. Bring your keyboard. Curious, I disconnected my portable keyboard and joined him, setting it across my lap. What are we doing? An experiment, Alex said. Play Shadow's Edge the way you changed it, and I'll try to match what I'm feeling to what you're playing. This was new territory for us. We'd written together before, but always with the buffer of Marcus and Jamie. Always with the clear purpose of creating something for the band. This felt different, more personal, more revealing. I began to play, the minor chords creating that sense of beautiful uncertainty I'd been trying to capture. After a few measures, Alex joined in, his guitar weaving around my keyboard part in a way that felt like a conversation. We weren't looking at each other, both focused on our instruments, but I'd never felt more connected to him. As we played, the music evolved, shifting and changing as we responded to each other's additions. There were moments of tension where our parts seemed to pull in different directions, and then beautiful resolutions where everything aligned perfectly. It was collaboration in its purest form, give and take, question and answer, statement and response. When we finally brought the improvisation to a close, the silence that followed felt charged with unspoken words. I looked up to find Alex already watching me, an expression on his face I couldn't quite read. He started. Yeah, I agreed, understanding perfectly what he couldn't articulate. We should record that sometime, he said, but made no move to set his guitar aside or create distance between us. It felt important somehow. I nodded, suddenly aware of how close we were sitting, how our knees were almost touching, how the garage seemed smaller than it had minutes ago. Alex, the sound of the side door opening interrupted whatever I might have said next. Jamie's voice called out, "Is it safe to come back in? Or are you two still having a moment?" Alex laughed, the spell broken. "We're good. Just fixed the string and did some impromptu songwriting." As Jamie and Marcus returned to their positions, I couldn't help but feel a mixture of relief and disappointment. What would I have said if we hadn't been interrupted? What was I prepared to risk? The rest of the rehearsal passed in a blur of songs and adjustments, technical discussions about tempo and transitions. But beneath it all was a new awareness, at least for me. Something had shifted during our musical conversation, though I couldn't yet name what it was. As we packed up for the night, Alex helped me disconnect my keyboard and wrap the cables, something he'd never done before. "That was a good rehearsal," he said, handing me the neatly coiled power cord. "Yeah, despite the string casualty," I agreed, trying to keep my tone light. "Because of it, maybe," he countered with a small smile. "Sometimes things need to break before they can be fixed properly." I wasn't sure if we were still talking about guitar strings. Jamie announced she was giving Marcus a ride home, and they left with suspicious speed, leaving Alex and me to finish locking up. As I zipped my keyboard into its case, I felt rather than saw Alex move closer. "Hey," he said, his voice softer than usual. "About that thing we were playing earlier." I looked up, trying to keep my expression neutral despite the sudden acceleration of my pulse. "What about it?" It felt like we were saying something to each other. Something important. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I recognized as a sign of nervousness. At least, it felt that way to me. This was it. The moment where I could either retreat to safety or step into unknown territory. My fingers tightened on the handle of my keyboard case. It felt that way to me too. Alex nodded, seeming relieved. "I've been thinking a lot lately about timing. In music, timing is everything, right? Being in sync, knowing when to come in, when to hold back. Right?" I agreed, not sure where he was going with this. But in life, timing is messy, eh? Sometimes you wait for the perfect moment, and it never comes. He took a deep breath. "I don't want to wait anymore and risk missing something important." My heart was pounding so loudly I was certain he could hear it. "What are you saying, Alex?" Instead of answering directly, he asked, "Remember when we first met? At that open mic night at the Rusty Nail?" I nodded. How could I forget? I performed a solo piano piece, something original and, in retrospect, not very good. But Alex had approached me afterward, genuinely enthusiastic about my playing, and suggested we jam sometime. 2 weeks later, Midnight Reverie was born. You played that song, Autumn Reflections, you called it. And there was this moment in the middle where you hesitated, just for a second, like you'd forgotten what came next. But then you found your way back to the melody. Alex's eyes held mine. I think about that moment a lot. How sometimes we lose our place, but can still find our way back to where we're supposed to be. I remembered that hesitation, a brief moment of panic when my mind went blank. I didn't think anyone noticed, I admitted. I noticed everything about you that night, Alex said quietly. And every rehearsal, every gig, every late-night conversation since then. I notice everything. But I've never said anything because, he gestured vaguely between us. This, the band, our friendship, it all matters too much to risk. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, exhilarated and terrified all at once. Some things are worth the risk, I said, surprised by my own boldness. Alex took a step closer. That's what I'm starting to think too. He reached out, hesitated, then gently took my hand. When that string broke tonight, and we were fixing it together, I realized something. Music has always been how I understand the world, how I process my feelings. And lately, all my songs have been about you. Every chord progression, every melody, they're all trying to say what I haven't been brave enough to tell you directly. The world seemed to narrow to just this moment, this confession hanging in the air between us. Which is, I prompted, hardly daring to breathe. That I'm in love with you, Alex said simply. Probably have been since that open mic night. Definitely have been since you joined the band. And I've been terrified of saying it, because what if it changes everything? What if it ruins the band? What if? I didn't let him finish. Perhaps it was the months of unspoken feelings finally demanding expression, or maybe it was the simple certainty in his voice when he said he loved me, but I found myself closing the distance between us and kissing him mid-sentence. For a moment, Alex seemed surprised, but then he was kissing me back, his free hand coming up to cup my face. It was nothing like I'd imagined, and I had imagined it countless times, and yet somehow better, real and imperfect, and absolutely right. When we finally pulled apart, Alex was smiling that half-smile I loved, but there was something new in it now, a certainty, a joy that hadn't been there before. Well, he said, that's one way to tune a heart. I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in months. That was terrible. Please tell me you're not going to put that in a song. Too late, he teased, already composing the chorus in my head. His expression grew more serious. But really, are we doing this? Us. Because I need you to know I'm all in if you are. The question deserved a thoughtful answer. There were practical considerations, the band dynamics. What would happen if things didn't work out? How Marcus and Jamie would react. But in that moment, none of those concerns felt as important as the simple truth that had been resonating within me for longer than I cared to admit. I'm all in, I said. Have been for a while now. Just didn't know if you were playing the same song. Alex's smile widened. Turns out we've been harmonizing all along. He glanced at his watch and grimaced. It's getting late. We should probably head out before Marcus's parents start wondering why there are still cars in their driveway. Reality began to seep back in around the edges of our moment. We still had to pack up the rest of our equipment, turn off the lights, lock the garage. But everything felt different now, charged with new meaning and possibility. As we finished cleaning up, moving around each other in the familiar space that now felt brand new, Alex paused by the door. Friday's gig is going to feel different now, isn't it? I considered this as I slung my keyboard case over my shoulder. Maybe. But maybe that's good. Maybe we'll play better knowing we're not hiding anymore. Like being properly in tune, Alex suggested, holding the door open for me. Exactly. I agreed, stepping out into the cool night air. Like finally finding the right key. As we walked to our cars, I couldn't help but think about how a single broken string had somehow tuned everything else into perfect harmony. There would be challenges ahead, of course. Conversations with Jamie and Marcus, navigating the new dimensions of our relationship while preserving what made our band work, learning how to be both bandmates and more. But for now, as Alex kissed me goodnight beside my car, his guitar case in one hand and the other gently cradling my face, I was content to enjoy this moment of perfect resonance. Sometimes things do need to break before they can be fixed properly. And sometimes, what seems like an interruption to the music is actually just the beginning of a much better song. Total _char_count, 18,834.